The difference between the rich and the poor often comes down to one simple thing. The rich trade ideas for money. The poor trade hours for money. Ideas compound, hours run out. If you want to shift from a poor mindset to a millionaire mindset, you must stop thinking only in terms of wages and start thinking in terms of value creation. A fortune isn't built in one leap. It's built in the gap between what you earn and what you spend. That space, however small, is where wealth is born. But only if you protect it, grow it, and refuse to trade it away for momentary comfort. So if you truly want to make the shift, stop chasing shortcuts and start practicing disciplines. Because the road from poor to millionaire isn't paved with luck. It's paved with daily, deliberate choices. And today, you get to choose. When I first started working, I learned something that completely shifted the way I looked at money. Wages will make you a living, but profits will make you a fortune. There's nothing wrong with having a job. In fact, it can be a great starting point. A job gives you structure, teaches you discipline, and provides that consistent paycheck to cover your needs. But here's the truth, wages are limited. They're tied to the hours you work, and there's only so many hours in a day. If your income depends solely on your time, you've already capped your potential. Profits, on the other hand, have no ceiling. Profits come from assets that work whether you're working or not. They come from businesses, investments, real estate, intellectual property, things that once created or acquired keep producing for you over and over again. The beauty of profits is leverage. You put in the work once, and you can be paid again and again. I remember the first time I experienced this. I was still working my regular job, but I took a portion of my paycheck, about 20%, and invested it into a small venture I believed in. At first, the returns were small, almost insignificant compared to my wages. But over time, those small returns grew. And soon I realized that little stream of profit had begun covering bills my wages used to pay for. That was the moment I understood freedom isn't built on hours, it's built on assets. So here's the strategy. Keep your job if you need it, but don't just work for wages. Use that active income to build something that produces profits. Start small if you have to. Allocate at least 20% of what you earn toward investments or a small business idea. Make it non-negotiable. You're not just saving, you're planting seeds for future harvests. Because the day will come when your profits exceed your wages. And when that happens, you'll understand what freedom really feels like. Not the freedom to just make a living, but the freedom to live life on your own terms. That's when your money stops depending on you and starts working for you. And that's the real game. One of the quickest ways to kill your financial future is to be careless with your capital. I've seen people spend years working hard, saving diligently, and then in one rash decision, usually fueled by excitement, greed, or pressure, wipe out everything they've built. And here's the truth. A single bad investment doesn't just cost you money, it costs you time. It takes years to recover not only the lost funds, but the compounding growth you would have earned if that money had stayed safe and productive. Your capital is the seed of your future wealth. Without it, you have nothing to plant, nothing to grow. That's why you must protect it like your life depends on it, because financially speaking, it does. Never hand your money over to something you don't fully understand. If you can't explain how it works in simple terms, you don't own it, it owns you. I learned this the hard way early in my career. I was introduced to an amazing opportunity that promised huge returns in a short time. It sounded too good to be true, and of course, it was. I didn't ask enough questions, didn't study the risks, didn't think through how I'd get my money back. I just jumped in. Within months, it collapsed, and I lost every penny. But the biggest loss wasn't the money, it was the lesson I had to relearn. Protect the seed at all costs. So here's your rule. Before you commit $1, write down 3 things: how it works, the risks involved, and your exit plan. If you can't clearly define all three, you're not ready. And if someone tries to rush you, walk away. Opportunities that are real will still be there when you've done your homework. The goal isn't just to grow wealth, it's to keep it. Because if you keep your capital safe and compounding, you don't need 100 big wins. You only need a few smart moves over time. And that's how fortunes are really made, quietly, steadily, without gambling the farm. Most people treat their finances like a mystery. Money comes in, money goes out. And they hope what's left is enough. But wealth doesn't grow in mystery. It grows in clarity. If you want your financial life to improve, you have to measure it. Because what gets measured gets improved, and what gets ignored gets worse. Every 30 days, sit down and audit, not just your bank account, but your decisions. Where did your money go? More importantly, where did your time go? Time is your most valuable asset, yet it's often the most wasted. If you look back over a month and can't connect your spending or your schedule to your goals, that's your warning light. I started doing this early in my journey. At first, it was uncomfortable. I didn't like seeing how much I was spending on things that didn't matter, or how much time I was wasting on activities that weren't moving me forward. But that discomfort became my turning point. I began cutting what didn't serve me, subscriptions I didn't use, dinners I didn't remember, hours lost to distractions, and I reallocated both my money and my time toward things that actually produced results, investments, skills, and relationships that paid dividends. Think of it like running a business. No successful company would operate without tracking expenses, revenue, and productivity. You are the CEO of your own life, and your personal finances are your business. If you're not looking at the numbers, you're running blind. So set a recurring date every month. Make it a non-negotiable appointment with yourself. Review your spending, your earning, your investments, and your use of time. Ask what worked, what didn't, what needs to change, then make the cuts and adjustments immediately. Wealth is built by design, not by accident. And regular audits keep you in control of that design, so you can steer your financial life exactly where you want it to go. Money has a curious way of following knowledge. The market pays for value, and value comes from skill, insight, and the ability to solve problems. Yet so many people make the mistake of thinking they can out-earn their lack of growth. They work harder, longer, and faster. But they're running in place because their skills are outdated. The truth is, if you want your income to grow, your knowledge has to grow faster. Early in my career, I realized I was working as hard as I could, but my results were barely moving. I was competing with others who had been in the game longer, who knew more, and who could create more value in less time. It wasn't until I shifted my focus to learning, not just earning, that things changed. I began taking a percentage of my income, even when it was small, and investing it back into myself. Books that sharpened my thinking, courses that gave me new tools, mentorships that gave me shortcuts, and workshops that expanded my vision. At first, it felt like a luxury, spending money on learning instead of keeping it in my pocket. But I quickly learned it was the most productive investment I could make. A single idea from a book or a piece of advice from a mentor could add thousands to my income over the years. That's a return no stock or real estate deal could match. If you want to see your income double, triple, or multiply tenfold, start by upgrading you. Dedicate at least 5% of your monthly income, no matter the amount, to learning that directly increases your earning potential. Treat it as an essential bill, just like rent or electricity. Because when you commit to learning faster than you earn, your skills will stay ahead of the market, and your opportunities will multiply. Earning is temporary. Learning is permanent. One compounds in your bank account, The other compounds in your mind, and the second is what fuels the first. One of the greatest temptations in building wealth is to start spending your returns the moment they show up. That first dividend check, that first profit from a side business, that rental income hitting your account, it feels like a reward, like the universe giving you permission to upgrade your lifestyle. But here's the truth. If you consume your harvest before the seeds have multiplied, you'll never build a forest. In my early days, I made this mistake. I took my first profits and celebrated new clothes, nicer dinners, little luxuries. But those small indulgences came at a large cost. I slowed the growth of my assets. I was eating the goose instead of letting it lay more golden eggs. Eventually, I learned the discipline that separates those who only get rich for a season from those who stay rich for a lifetime. Reinvesting until your assets replace your income. Here's the formula. Take every gain, whether it's from investments, business, or a side project, and roll it back into building more income-producing assets. That might mean buying more shares, acquiring another rental unit, or reinvesting business profits into marketing or product expansion. The goal is simple. Keep the compounding engine running at full speed until your passive income equals or exceeds your monthly living expenses. Once that happens, you're financially free. You can choose to keep working, scale higher, or simply enjoy the freedom of knowing your life is paid for without you having to trade hours for dollars. The discipline here is patience. You must delay the lifestyle upgrade until the machine is self-sustaining. The short-term sacrifice will feel small compared to the lifetime of independence you'll gain. Remember, wealth isn't built by spending your returns. It's built by letting your returns create more returns. Keep planting until the harvest takes care of itself. Leverage is one of the most powerful tools in the wealth-building world, and also one of the most dangerous. It's like fire. In the right hands, fire can warm a home, cook a meal, or forge steel. In the wrong hands, it can burn the house to the ground. Borrowed money works the same way. It can accelerate your success beyond what your own capital could do, or it can magnify your mistakes until they crush you. In my early business days, I saw people use leverage to create empires, and I saw others lose everything overnight because they treated debt like free money. The difference wasn't luck, it was discipline. The ones who thrived only used leverage on ventures with a proven track record, things that were already producing consistent, predictable income. The ones who failed used it on dreams that looked good on paper but hadn't yet faced the test of reality. If you're going to use borrowed money, the rule is simple. It must be for something that pays you back more than it cost you, and you must already understand it inside and out. No guesses, no I hope it works, no chasing shiny opportunities. If it's not proven, you're gambling, not investing. And never, under any circumstances, use leverage for lifestyle. A bigger house, a nicer car, an exotic vacation, they feel good for a moment. But debt tied to consumption is a shackle, not a tool. Used wisely, leverage can shorten the distance between where you are and where you want to be. Used foolishly, it can send you back further than where you started. Treat it with respect, and it will work for you. Treat it casually, and it will work against you, relentlessly. Most people never get started because they're waiting for the perfect time. They tell themselves, when I have more money, I'll invest. Or when I'm earning more, I'll save. The problem is, that day rarely comes. Life has a way of filling every gap you think will appear. If you can't manage $50, you won't magically manage $5,000. The habit matters more than the amount. I remember a time when I could barely scrape together extra cash. I wasn't starting with thousands. I was starting with pocket change. But I learned something important. Wealth is built on consistency, not convenience. Every small deposit was a vote for my future freedom, and over time, those votes added up. What began as a trickle turned into a steady stream, and eventually, a river. The size of your start has no bearing on the size of your finish, unless you use it as an excuse not to start at all. The great fortunes of the world didn't all begin with windfalls. Many began with someone deciding, this is the day I start building. If $50 is all you can spare, put it to work. Open that investment account. Set up that savings transfer. Buy that first share of a company you believe in. The act of starting does something powerful. It shifts your identity. You're no longer someone thinking about wealth. You're someone building it. And once that shift happens, momentum follows. The secret is not to wait for enough. It's to make what you have enough to begin. There comes a point when the numbers in your account stop being the real measure of wealth. True wealth isn't just what you can spend in your lifetime. It's what continues to work long after you're gone. Money without legacy is just accumulation, and accumulation dies with you. But legacy has a heartbeat that echoes for generations. I've met people who left behind fortunes only for their heirs to squander it within a few years. Why? Because they left money, but not meaning. They transferred assets, but not the wisdom to handle them. That's like handing someone a powerful engine with no instructions. They'll either stall it or crash it. Your responsibility isn't just to gather wealth, it's to prepare the next steward of it. When I think about building something that outlives me, I don't just think of trusts, wills, or businesses, though those matter. I think about principles, disciplines, and character. I think about the mornings I rose early to work on my craft, the decisions I made when no one was watching, the times I invested in others not because it was profitable, but because it was right. Those are the seeds that bear fruit beyond a single lifetime. Your plan might involve a trust to secure your family's future, charitable work to impact your community, or mentorship to pass on what you've learned. Whatever the form, design it with both structure and soul. Build streams of income that continue to flow and streams of wisdom that continue to guide. One is measured in dollars, the other in lives changed. And when both are in place, you don't just leave wealth, you leave a world that's richer because you were here. Most people see problems as obstacles. The wealthy see them as opportunities. In fact, every fortune I've ever studied started with someone finding a way to fix something others tolerated. The truth is, the size of the problem you solve often determines the size of the paycheck you earn. If you want to make a small income, solve small problems. If you want to make a fortune, solve problems so big that people can't afford to ignore you. I remember early in my career, I was selling a product in an industry full of inefficiencies. Deliveries were slow, customer service was clumsy, and no one seemed to care. Most salespeople just complained about it. But I thought, what if I become the person who fixes this? So I reworked the delivery process, communicated better with clients, and solved the delays. That single shift doubled my business in less than a year. I didn't invent a brand new product. I just solved a persistent problem better than anyone else. Look around your industry, your workplace, even your community. Inefficiencies are everywhere. Services that frustrate people, systems that waste time, products that fall short. Most people adapt to them. But the few who create a solution not only improve the experience, they create wealth for themselves. It could be an app that streamlines a tedious process, a business that fills a service gap, or a product that eliminates a recurring frustration. The key is to stop asking, why doesn't someone fix this? And start asking, how can I fix this? Because the moment you take ownership of solving a problem, you step into the role of creator, not consumer. And creators are the ones who write their own paychecks. When I was starting out, I didn't have a roadmap. I had ambition. I had hunger, but I didn't have direction. Then I discovered something that changed everything. Success leaves clues. The people who've built wealth, real wealth, have left behind a trail of decisions, habits, and philosophies that anyone can follow. It's not magic. It's not luck. It's patterns. I began studying those who had achieved the results I wanted. Not just how much money they made, but how they made it, how they thought, how they treated people, and how they navigated challenges. I'd listen to their talks, read their books, and when I could sit with them over coffee. And here's what I found. They all had principles they lived by. Disciplines so ingrained they didn't even have to think about them anymore. But I also learned something equally important. You can't just copy someone else's life and expect the same outcome. You have to adapt what you learn to your own strengths, your own style, and your own circumstances. If someone built wealth in real estate and you have no interest in property, forcing yourself into that lane will drain your energy. But you can still model their negotiation skills, their networking habits, and their approach to risk. Every breakthrough I've had in business came from borrowing a proven idea, reshaping it for my situation, and making it my own. Find someone who's already walked the path you want to travel. Study their steps. Learn their philosophy. Then build your version of it. Because wealth is not about imitation, it's about adaptation. I learned early on that the best way to truly understand something is to teach it. When you try to explain an idea to someone else, you quickly find out if you really understand it, or if you've just been nodding along. Wealth is no different. The principles, the disciplines, the philosophies, they sink deeper when you pass them on. I remember mentoring a young man who had just started his first small business. He didn't have much capital, but he had drive. As I explained to him why protecting capital was more important than chasing quick gains, I realized I was reminding myself of that same truth. The act of teaching forced me to articulate the reasoning, not just the rule. And when you can explain the why, the how becomes that much stronger in your own mind. You don't have to be a millionaire to teach wealth principles. You just have to be one step ahead of someone else in the journey. Share what you've learned, both your wins and your mistakes. Not for money, not for recognition, but because teaching cements your own understanding and extends your impact. There's also something powerful about watching someone else grow because of what you've shared. That's legacy. Your bank account can shrink, markets can crash, but the wisdom you plant in someone else's life can keep growing for decades. Teach freely, and you'll find that every time you give away a principle, it comes back to you stronger, sharper, and more deeply rooted. I've seen too many people exhaust themselves trying to save a few dollars here and there, while ignoring the opportunities that could bring in thousands. They clip coupons, they drive across town to save a dime on gas, they argue over pennies. Meanwhile, they never invest in learning a new skill, starting a side business, or creating an asset that could change their entire financial life. That's what I call majoring in minor things. Now, there's nothing wrong with being frugal. Controlling expenses matters. But if you spend all your energy there, you're playing defense your whole life. Defense might keep you from losing, but it will never win you the game. The real wealth builders spend most of their energy on increasing income, creating value so big that the minor costs hardly matter. When I was building my own businesses, I didn't waste hours trying to trim every tiny cost. Instead, I asked myself, what move could I make this month that would grow my income by 20%? What skill could I learn that would double my earning potential next year? Those are major things. So here's the balance. 20% of your attention should go to controlling expenses, keeping waste low, and protecting your capital. But 80%, the bulk of your energy, should go into learning, building, and earning more. Because when you double your income, That's worth more than a lifetime of nickel and dime savings. Don't get trapped in the small stuff. Play the big game. That's where wealth lives. You know, when it comes to wealth, people often think the magic is in the tactics, the stocks you buy, the real estate you hold, the business you start. And yes, those things matter, but they're not the foundation. The foundation is mindset. Because without the right philosophy, you can have the best opportunity in the world and still find a way to sabotage it. The truth is, wealth isn't an event. It's a direction. You don't arrive one day out of nowhere. You walk toward it daily through small disciplines and wise decisions, stacking on top of each other, until one day, the view around you looks very different from where you started. Every principle we've talked about today is not a lottery ticket. It's a compass. And when you point that compass toward financial freedom and walk with consistency, the result is inevitable. But here's the catch. The clock is running. Every day you wait to start, you're letting compounding work against you instead of for you. You're letting habits deepen that will be harder to break later. I've met too many people who told me, I'll start saving next year, or I'll invest when I make more. They never did. Life kept throwing them reasons to delay until decades had passed and they realized they had been running in place. So I'm asking you, no, I'm challenging you to start today. Not next week. Not after you figure everything out. Today. Write down your definition of wealth. Audit your finances. Put a small portion of your income into something that will grow. Pick up a book. Call a mentor. Take one step forward. Because the step you take today becomes the momentum you need tomorrow. And let me tell you something important. Wealth is not selfish. The richer you become, not just in money, but in skills, wisdom, and influence. The more you can give, the more you can build, and the more you can impact. You can't pour from an empty cup, and you can't lift others up if you're standing on shaky ground yourself. Get strong financially so you can pull others up with you. One day, if you stick to these principles, people will look at your life and call you lucky. They won't see the hours you spent learning, the discipline you held in spending, the risks you took after careful study. They'll just see the result. And you'll know the truth. It wasn't luck, it was choice. So here's my final word. Choose. Choose discipline over impulse, investment over consumption, growth over comfort, and do it today. Because a decade from now, your future self will look back at this moment and say, that's the day it all began. Now, go make it happen.